The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would like to simply reiterate that my friends are in the majority. To continue to blame the Democrats makes little sense to your voting public. They expect you to produce legislation. You want a constitutional amendment? You're in the majority. You want to pass a bill that allows prioritization? You're in the majority. You can do it. Believe me, trust me, you are in the majority. You don't have to depend on Democrats to get it done. I think in the spirit of compromise, that would be the better thing to do, but you're not willing to compromise. Therein lies the problem. If you want to do it, pass McClintock, pass it through the Senate, send it to the President. Let's see if he'll sign it. If he does not, then you go back through regular order and you produce something that we can all agree on to the extent that you got a majority in the House, majority in the Senate, and a president to sign it. But don't behave like you're in a minority and it's the mean old Democrats who won't let us pass legislation. It never stopped you from passing a repeal of the Affordable Care Act more than 50 times. More than 50 times. And there are still other repeals of it pending. You have repealed it consistently? Okay, then act like you're in the majority and pass your legislation. Let's go to Mr. Stone. Mr. Stone, there was a comment made about Greece, and you did not have an opportunity to finish. There was a comparison being made. Would you kindly finish your commentary?
Well, as I was saying, and I mean, Dan agrees Dr. Mitchell agrees that Japan is able to borrow with 200% with a debt ratio of 200% of GDP, and that's because Japan, the United States, UK borrow in their own currencies, have flexible exchange rates. That allows them to adjust. Now, nobody here thinks that including me, thinks that the current GDP projections are ultimately sustainable. We're discussing whether the debt limit is a worthwhile tool to try to discipline spending. And I strongly disagree with the idea that the debt limit has much to do with it, or that the prioritization makes sure that certain bills get paid, and maybe some bondholders are happy with that, but there's a lot of bills that don't get paid, and that doesn't make us look like a very fiscally responsible country. And and it makes it look like it's okay to not pay those bills in a protracted debt negotiation.
I appreciate your indicating that this is not an effective tool because of the consequences associated with a possible shutdown. And that causes me to hearken back to 2011 and what Moody's did when they downgraded us. And we didn't have the shutdown. We were downgraded. And I think that, Moody's gave us a negative, and S&P put us on a credit watch. So our opinions count, but the opinions of the agencies that rate us count as well. And while we may pay P&I, it will cause a good deal of consternation in international markets as to whether or not we're going to pay all of our bills and eventually not pay P&I. Why put ourselves in that position? Why don't we legislate now, given that we have more than 400 days to do what Ms. DeRoger says? Pass her recommendations if you'd like to. Don't expect me to vote for. I think we can get this done. The problem is that there are people who don't want to compromise. They want us to support any and everything and leave behind a good many people who are going to suffer as a result of the crisis that we will manufacture. To this end, it's my belief, Mr. Chairman, that Social Security is important to people who are receiving it. And I think we can sustain it, we can support it, without it being a detriment to the economy. We have to work together and work out a compromise on Social Security. But we're not doing that. Rather than do that with Social Security as well as with Medicare, we're trying to find a clever way to create a debt crisis so that we can have the administration prioritize. If you want a prioritizing to take place, pass the legislation. Get it done. You're the majority. It's your job to get it done. Don't whine and cry about how the Democrats won't support us and are there enough people here willing to do it. Yes, there are enough people willing to do it if you got the majority and you use it properly. I'll yield back.
The gentleman yields back.